All right, we're here today to talk about the next work environment. And this is in connection with Work Design Magazine's The Next Work Environment competition. There's a lot of change and uncertainty, and we've expanded the conversations to include experts in the workplace world today. The design competition seeks to expand our thinking on the issues related to our work environments because of COVID-19. And we see this as an opportunity to think beyond the traditional design to create work environments that focus on people, to design spaces that inspire, energize, and rejuvenate us. And today I'm really fortunate to be here with Patrick Donnelly. Patrick leads workplace strategy and design nationally for BHDP. It's a 170-person firm, integrated expertise in architecture, interior, environment, graphic design, and strategic consulting. And they're focused on design for people. He's recognized for connecting organizational culture, work process, and technology improvement to design spaces for people. So Patrick, great to have you here. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Bob. Thank you.
I'm excited to have this conversation. So let me ask you, just start out by telling us a little bit about your background and what you're doing.
We're in the midst of some of our most exciting work today. Long felt that we could provide strategic value through design thinking and designing places and applying that to solving business problems, organizational architecture. I didn't realize that the pandemic would actually cause us to go into the core of that part of our practice to help our clients think through their organizations, and because we designed for people, how they were going to communicate with, co-create with their people for strategies that are really going to help them not just be healthy, but in the long run, be more successful, because everyone's looking pretty diligently on the way they're doing their work and the way they're trying to manage their business through this, which is a real challenge.
You mentioned the COVID-19, and I'm curious, how that affected your business and, your work.
Startled at first, like all of us. I mean, the tragic loss of life and death, and in relationship to this, I'm married into a medical family. And of course, it's at first a health crisis, and secondly, a financial crisis. And probably in our mind, thirdly, a business continuity crisis. And I truly believe if we can deal with the health and the financial, the business continuity obviously takes care of itself. It's been so rewarding to watch our people step up and respond to what all of our clients are going through, and so many people are going through. But if you're in the knowledge business, you're now working remotely in an experiment that most said would never work. And much of our consulting was to help businesses wrestle with this idea of providing choice and using technology to better connect people, both in and outside a central workplace. Even though designing places is our primary business, we're also helping to design work and methodology and change, and experiential graphic design, interior design planning, integrated industrial design are all things that we do, all of which involve people, because people make place. So the first questions we ask are about people. The first information we apply to design is about people. We found agile work works, right? And it's not a question anymore. We've done 2 roundtables and a series of conversations. And then thankfully, Bob had an opportunity to publish our 5 Futures article with Work Design Magazine that Drew Susko, my colleague, wrote to try to help folks do scenario planning. It's not a paradigm shift, it's a whole new paradigm. So an exciting time for design professionals, because innovation is our business. We're making it up as we go, right? And so that's an exciting time for those of us who have an opportunity to sort through this with our clients.
It's interesting because you started to touch on some of the positive things that are coming out of this and new ways that people are embracing working. And what are the things that you see that are going to get carried forward, coming out of the COVID crisis?
Behavior is a funny thing. It's driven by habits. And old dog, new tricks. I've learned a lot about technology in the last 2 or 3 months. I've also learned a lot about people in the last 2 or 3 months and communicating. My fear is that we return to the status quo because it's comfortable. Because even with a mask on, you can go back to work. I've actually been in our offices, much less populated, very few people coming back yet. I think it's going to be a long time before we see what this new paradigm is. But my hope is that we leverage these new skills, these new talents of working remotely to provide people choice. There's going to be a whole new world of acquiring talent. That talent can be anywhere. I think there's going to be a whole new, and the design competition that you're driving is getting at this whole new activity-based work settings, because right now, I think we're realizing, and it's still new, we can work remotely, but we're missing the socialization of work. And I think we don't even realize what we're missing yet in terms of the way ideas get transferred and the way we create solutions is compromised because we can't be together and work together. So my hope is that as we come back together, we can find what we lost while keeping what we have and maintaining a certain level of choice that actually makes work a much better experience for people.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that I hope this whole conversation elevates that thought process.
Yeah.
But, as people start coming back, what are the issues that you see that are going to start to rise to the surface?
We won't come back completely the way we used to be. The way we used to be is gone. A lot of ways of working, tethered work has been untethered and been permitted to work in a different way. I don't think contact centers or call centers will ever be the same because so much of that work has been enabled from the home. Probably the best way to answer that, we thought through it for our latest roundtable, where we did solutioning across 6 questions, and we did scenario planning across those five futures, those 5 scenarios. And those scenarios were everything from borrowing from Shakespeare's The Tempest, what's past is prologue. I've come back to the workplace and it's like it's 1986 again, and there's tall panels and shields that keep people from breathing on one another and the like. All the way down to, health and safety is paramount, companies that have really taken the short-term approach and applied a lot of thinking and investment in making sure people feel safe and psychologically safe. And then there was a scenario called Cultural Cafe, the Cultural Cafe. We're actually designing one now, where we think some of the things we've lost and may need most in the future is how do you keep a positive culture going, or how do you respond and provide the culture your people need to be successful? Is there a place, because you catch the culture from others. You kind of catch the culture like you catch a virus, actually. And you need to be with others, and how does place enable that? If these walls could speak, how could they tell you about the mission and the vision and what's special about this place, and how can I connect to it? So those are all qualities that I think are going to be highly regarded as we look anew at what this new paradigm is. I'm not high on empathy. But right now, my hope is that my empathy, that little bit that I have, is finely tuned, and I rely on it more, and that we walk in the shoes of others as we design things. And we look at our communities. I mean, having greater empathy for others. I mean, I put on a mask not because I don't want to get a virus, but not because I don't want to get a virus, but because I don't want to carry it to somebody else. And so start thinking in an empathetic way. I mean, design thinking begins, first step is empathy. Not just understand the problem, but understand the people, the behaviors, and all the input. At BHDP, we do data and analytics driven design. So we're always gathering hard and soft data to inform those solutions. More and more, that's going to be about people, and it's going to be about how we interact. And community design is going to be so closely related to workplace design. For me, in the future, we're starting to call it communities at work. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about and applying them in small ways. And these ideas have been around, but I think we're going to see where they're going to be more applicable and pick up pace as a result of this whole new world.
So what are you going to do differently as you come back into the workplace?
Well, I did it this week. I'm married to a neatnik, and I have gotten much better at sanitizing things. I'll tell you that. Grab my sanitation station, and I actually was able to choose where I was going to sit, which is close to a huddle room in the office, and cleaned both places, kept my mask on at work, and sought out people just to touch base to see how they were doing. It was less about having a technical conversation or finding a place to do heads down work. It was really more about connecting with people. What I'm going to try to do is make sure that I'm more inclusive in my thinking, because some people are going to remain remote and away from the central office longer for family reasons, for personal reasons, and because they can work effectively. So how do I make sure that they're still connected to the work and we benefit from their involvement while others are beginning to gather? And also, we're coming back in shifts like many are. You're not coming back to a full population of work. And I guess the last thing I would share is I've asked, when we've talked about this issue, when I've worked with leaders, to think about like our agrarian society. You know, we go to school 9 months out of the year because you were needed on the farm to work with dad and your uncle and your siblings to plant and to grow and to harvest crops. So you got to know about your dad and your uncle and your siblings and got to know them better. I know a lot more about what my 6'5", 17-year-old is doing today than I did then. And I want to retain some of that and take advantage of some of that and be able to spend more time with my wife, Patty, and maintain that kind of connectedness and the opportunity to really benefit from working this way, you know, and have conversations, but also be present to your family more, just like we used to be back on the farm, while still, you know, attending to our work and to the, you know, careers that we love.
Patrick, as people are starting to work on their submissions for the next work environment competition, maybe you could help them in terms of, you know, what kinds of things, you know, should they consider as they're putting their submissions together?
That's a big question, but I'll give you a short answer. When you work at home a lot, you don't move around as much. So that 2.5 mile loop of a walk or that 5 mile bike ride, or getting regularly out on your sailboat, Bob, has become that much more important. Watch how people are responding and reacting socially and as a community. Apply that to your thinking when you think about work. Don't get trapped into arranging furniture, but really think about how work is social and interactive. But look at those conversations. Think about the way that happens. And of course, we design for people. So I would recommend think about people first, because that's the empathy that we need. And let place follow from that. Think about personally about the way you're interacting with people and how that can shape your ideas for bricks and mortar, steel and glass, the other inert things that you're trying to put together creatively.
Great, Patrick. Well, thank you. This has been a great conversation. Lots of good ideas. It's been great to catch up with you.
Appreciate your friendship. Good luck with your practice, with everything you're doing with the magazine. Keep going. We're all benefiting from it. Thanks, Bob.